In early 2026, cryptic posters appeared on the streets of London. No band name, no label logo, just a title, Foreign Tongues, translated into dozens of languages and plastered across walls and billboards in the specific kind of guerrilla campaign that the world's biggest bands only attempt when they're confident that a mystery will generate more attention than a press release. The name on the posters, where a name appeared at all, was the Cockroaches. If you knew, you already knew. The Cockroaches is the pseudonym the Rolling Stones have used since the 1970s to sneak into smaller venues and play secret shows without triggering the chaos that comes with being the Rolling Stones. The name had appeared on a vinyl-only single called Rough and Twisted that sold out almost instantly on its release, before anyone officially confirmed who had made it. By the time Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood announced Foreign Tongues as their 25th studio album due July 10, 2026, the mystery had already done its job. The world was paying attention, but the story of Foreign Tongues is not just a story about a new album. It is a story about how the greatest rock and roll band in history is choosing to finish. And the way they're doing it, deliberately gracefully, with Charlie Watts still somehow present on the recordings, tells you something profound about who the Rolling Stones have always been. The Rolling Stones were formed in London in 1962. Mick Jagger was 19. Keith Richards was 18. They found each other, by the kind of chance that only happens in origin stories, at Dartford Station, Jagger carrying Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters records under his arm. Richards recognizing them immediately, the two of them falling into conversation about American blues music that would eventually reshape British rock and then reshape everything. 64 years later, Jagger is 82, Richards is 82, Ronnie Wood, who joined in 1975, replacing Mick Taylor, and has now been in the band for 51 years, is 78. They have released 24 studio albums. They have sold somewhere between 250 and 300 million records worldwide. They have performed for more live audiences than virtually any band in history. The Stones' A Bigger Bang tour from 2005 to 2007 grossed over $558 million, still among the highest-grossing concert tours ever recorded. The No Filter tour that ran from 2017 to 2021 grossed over $415 million. They have survived everything. The death of original member Brian Jones in 1969, drug arrests, tax exile, the death of Charlie Watts in 2021, internal conflicts that would have destroyed most bands within 5 years, let alone 60. And through all of it, they have remained stubbornly, improbably, magnificently the Rolling Stones. Foreign Tongues is their 25th studio album, and for the first time in their career, there is a genuine sense that it may be the last. Foreign Tongues was recorded at Metropolis Studios in West London in a single, intense month in 2025. The same studio, the same producer, the same approach that had delivered their previous album, Hackney Diamonds, in 2023. Andrew Watt, who has built a reputation as one of the best producers in the world at capturing raw, live feeling energy from legacy artists who could easily become self-parodies, returned to handle production duties. Jagger's own description of the recording process is characteristically direct. He said, "It was a very intense few weeks recording Foreign Tongues. We had 14 great tracks and we went as fast as we could. I like the room there as it's not too big so you can feel the passion in the room from everyone." Richards described it as a month of concentrated punch, with a continuity from Hackney Diamonds and that London vibe that the last record had. Wood said, "The atmosphere in the room was so creative and the whole band was on top form throughout the whole process." The album is structured as a combination of 10 newly recorded songs and 4 tracks drawn from earlier sessions, a deliberate construction that makes Foreign Tongues feel, as Jagger put it in a BBC Radio 2 interview, like a record that bridges multiple eras of the band's recent history. Fresh material alongside ideas that had been sitting in the vault, finally finished and placed where they belonged. The full 14-track lineup includes some revealing choices. Rough and Twisted, the Cockroaches single, raw and bluesy, described by one critic as capturing a killer riff, a devil-may-care spirit, and the feeling that the Rolling Stones are still a chaotic bar band forever on the verge of collapse, happiest in the most low-down dives. In the Stars, the lead single, a more expansive pop-rock track with what reviewers called a unique melody to the chorus and a new side to the Stones. And in perhaps the most unexpected choice on the record, a cover of Amy Winehouse's You Know I'm No Good, rendered in the track list in Polish as Wiesz, że jestem do niczego. A band that started in the blues, covering a woman who grew up listening to them, playing it as if it had always been theirs. There is one element of Foreign Tongues that elevates it beyond simply a very good late-period Rolling Stones album, and that is Charlie Watts. Watts died on August 24th, 2021. He was 80 years old. He had been the heartbeat of the Rolling Stones for 57 years, arguably the most important drummer in rock and roll history in terms of what he brought to a specific band. Because the Stones' entire rhythmic identity, their specific combination of looseness and precision, their ability to feel simultaneously like a bar band and a symphony, was built around the way Charlie Watts played. He was irreplaceable in the truest possible sense. The sessions that produced material for Foreign Tongues took place in Los Angeles in 2021, shortly before his death. Several tracks from those same sessions had already appeared on Hackney Diamonds, the band's 2023 comeback record. But the material captured with Watts in those final sessions was deep enough to carry forward. On Foreign Tongues, the track Hit Me in the Head features an archived Charlie Watts drum track from those 2021 sessions. Early reviews of the album note that the song barrels along aggressively in your face, which is, if you know anything about how Charlie Watts played, exactly the kind of description he would have appreciated. He never overplayed, he never performed. He just hit the drums the way they needed to be hit at exactly the right moment, and made everything around him better. The inclusion of his drumming means that on what may be the Rolling Stones' final studio album, the man who held the rhythm for 57 years is still present, still playing, still the heartbeat. In late June 2026, Keith Richards gave an interview that reframed the entire conversation around Foreign Tongues. At 82 years old, Richards acknowledged that he is battling arthritis, a condition that, for a guitarist who has spent 6 decades playing with a ferocity that would exhaust musicians a third his age, is not an abstract medical reality but a direct physical limitation on what he can do. He said plainly that the Rolling Stones may be done with massive traditional world tours. The European stadium run that had been planned for 2026 was officially shelved, not postponed, shelved. The logistics of global touring, the travel, the production, the physical demands on a body that has been doing this since 1962 are no longer manageable in the same way they were even 5 years ago. But Richards was clear that this is not the end of live music. He floated an alternative. City residencies, London, New York, Paris, Rome, the band staying in one place for multiple nights, which eliminates the travel while preserving the performance. A model that would let the music continue without destroying the people making it. Mick Jagger, by all accounts, remains physically remarkable for a man his age, still performing, still energetic, still capable of delivering a 2-hour rock show with the conviction of a man who has been doing it for 6 decades because he genuinely cannot imagine doing anything else. Ronnie Wood, who has survived lung cancer and continues to paint prolifically between musical projects, is similarly committed. The Rolling Stones are not ending, they are changing shape, and the band's own comment to Mojo magazine is perhaps the most honest summary of where they are. If you're not performing, what are you going to do? Foreign Tongues is already generating the kind of reviews that remind everyone why the Rolling Stones still matter. Mojo called it a rousing and varied experience with plenty of trademark Stones action. Rolling Stone described In the Stars as showing a new side to the Stones, while settling back into an instantly recognizable Keith Richards riff. Critics noted the return of bassist Daryl Jones, who had been unavailable for Hackney Diamonds but is back on Foreign Tongues, completing the sonic picture. And the detail about Benmont Tench of Tom Petty's Heartbreakers appearing on organ drew special attention, described in one review as weaving a spell in a moment where an instrumental part has room to breathe. There is also this detail, quietly reported in multiple outlets. The Rolling Stones have written at least 10 additional songs beyond the 14 tracks on Foreign Tongues, which means that whatever this is, final chapter, farewell, deliberate goodbye, the creative well has not run dry. There is more material sitting in the vault. Foreign Tongues may or may not be the last Rolling Stones album. Richards himself has said similar things before, and the band has a long history of suggesting finality before continuing anyway. But what is different this time is the specificity of the physical reality. The arthritis is real, the scrapped European tour is real, the residency model, floated as a serious alternative, is real. The Rolling Stones are not going quietly. But they are, finally, acknowledging that some things have limits, and choosing to define those limits on their own terms, the way they have defined everything else in their 64-year career. Here's what I keep thinking about as I sit with Foreign Tongues and everything surrounding it. The Rolling Stones were told in 1964 that they were too scruffy, too rude, too sexually threatening to be allowed on American television. Ed Sullivan booked them, told them to change a lyric, and they complied, and then immediately went back to being exactly who they were. They have been told, at every stage of their existence, that they had peaked, that they were finished, that the next chapter was going to be a disappointment. They have never believed it, not once. And so here they are, at 82 years old, still recording in a London studio in concentrated bursts of pure creative energy, still figuring out new ways to get on stage, still carrying Charlie Watts drumming into a future he didn't get to see, Still selling out the idea that a band assembled in 1962 to play American blues music in the pubs of South London has anything left to say. A month of concentrated punch, Richards called it. That is the Rolling Stones in 5 words. It has always been a month of concentrated punch, regardless of how many months had come before it. Foreign Tongues releases on July 10, 2026. Play it loud. If you've heard In the Stars or Rough and Twisted yet, drop your reaction in the comments. And what's your favorite Rolling Stones album of all time? Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.